She's an enthusiastic gun rights activist, a Washington University graduate, a convicted spy who tried to influence US presidential elections. The development comes at a time when the special counsel Robert Mueller investigating Russia's role in 2016 US election and whether Trump's campaign conspired with Moscow to help him win. Though the Bureau investigation is not looking into the case currently, but Butina becomes the first Russian citizen to be convicted of working to shape US policy in time periods spanning the 2016 campaign. Now, Kremlin, meanwhile, has rejected the allegations.
You determined if this was, and there was no conflict of interest?
By talking with her.
Well,
by talking with her and the parties.
And you concluded?
That she knew what she was doing and that she was extremely satisfied with her lawyers. She was extremely satisfied with her lawyers.
And therefore, her plea is?
Voluntary. We also spoke to our correspondent in Moscow, Lucy Taylor.
Well, Russia today has said these accusations are baseless, and as you were saying, the Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has implied that the reason that Maria Butina has made this guilty plea is because she was treated badly in the US, tortured, he said, and she's just willing to say anything in order to secure her release and to get back to Russia. This is what Russia's been saying all along, ever since her arrest earlier this year. But it goes further than just a denial. They're not just denying that any of this is true, they're actually actively campaigning for her release, actively trying to raise the profile of this case to try to change its outcome. For example, the Russian Foreign Ministry has had Maria Butina's face as its profile picture on social media ever since she was arrested. The Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has spoken directly to the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo about this case. And earlier this week we heard from Vladimir Putin, the president, who said that he'd asked around among intelligence officials and none of them had ever heard of Butina before her arrest. So a very strong line from Russia saying this isn't true, nothing is true, and even after a guilty plea by Maria Butina, even after we know that she is now cooperating with US prosecutors, they still continue to stick to that line.
Do you think that this move will do any good to any very fragile, frail, intense relationship between the Palestinians and Israeli government?
No, certainly not. Certainly these won't be of any help towards a future possible peace agreement and more rounds of discussion between the two parties involved, as it was not of any help the fact that some Palestinian individuals decided to attack and shot at Israeli civilians on Sunday while they were standing in front of a bus stop. So this is an upsurge of violence which is definitely not needed in a very delicate moment. Remember that the United States are still working on what is called the deal of the century, which is an omni-comprehensive proposal to end the conflict between Israel and Palestine. And certainly any upsurge in violence is an obstacle. Also, Israel has shown a certain restraint in November when things flared up in Gaza, decided to accept a truce with Hamas despite the very violent aggression that Hamas perpetrated. One cannot think that Israel will accept each and every act of violence, and particularly if perpetrated in the West Bank territory, where they believe that they are way more in control than in the Gaza Strip.
But then why has this move come suddenly? Is it because of the domestic pressure, or really the Israeli government feels they really need a law to provide infrastructure to those settlements which are already in disputed areas?
Definitely, yes. So the recent move that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu did of requesting the court in Israel to move on and building regularizing thousands of homes of settlers comes as a retaliation of what has happened. In order to understand how significant this is, we need to understand what is the meaning, the political meaning of settlements in Israel. Settlements are built on what Israel deems to be its own government land, but is well within Palestinian territories, within the border of the so-called West Bank, which ideally should be the basis for the future state of Palestine. Settlers are moved into these settlements, which, according to Palestinians, are built on their own land. So it's the real bone of contention on the entire Palestinian issues. The settlements are also deemed illegal by international law. The United Nations Security Council has amended the resolution in order to declare them illegal. So this move comes because Netanyahu needs, as you correctly pointed out, to show to its internal front that he is actually doing something in favor of Israelis and against Palestinians, but also as a regular instrument of pressure and advance of the Israeli presence within Palestinian territory.
In a rare joint press conference, the Finance Minister Arun Jaitley and Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that the government's stand vindicated exposes the accusations of the Congress party.
Falsehood also has a very short life. In this case, it was a few months. And falsehood always lowers the credibility of its creator. The Rafale issue has each of these features. As the Raksha Mantri has just read to you, the disruptors have lost. And they have lost on all counts.
All the three heads on which concern was expressed in the writ, the court has come out clearly. The verdict is absolutely there for all of us to see. The matter on Rafale has thoroughly been, through the court, laid to rest.